There are many misconceptions about one of the most popular horror stories of all time, Frankenstein. First of all, Frankenstein is actually the doctor, aside from common belief that he's the monster. But you may be thinking that Frankenstein's actually like a zombie, right? Wrong. Frankenstein is actually really smart, being able to plan a murder, get away with it, read, and stalk people. It should stay on the 101 College Board list because it's still relevant today, being able to relate to feminism, new historicism, and psychoanalytic theory through its ideas of equality and acceptance. From the original text, Dr. Frankenstein is a young and educated man of science who gets interested in the creation of life. So, he begins to study anatomy and death and decay. People frown on his new area of study, so he studies in secret and creates the monster. Victor Frankenstein is so horrified by his creation that he gets sick and the monster escapes. Then as soon as he recovers, he gets a letter from his dad saying Frankenstein's youngest brother has been murdered. Frankenstein sees his monster lurking where his brother was killed. Then he pieces together that the monster was the killer. Turns out that the monster was able to frame William's servant Justine. She's found guilty by the jury and is executed. To recover from the depressing news, Frankenstein goes out into the mountains with his father and fiancée. To his surprise, he runs into his monster, who reveals his motives as to why he killed William and how he was able to frame Justine. The monster tells Frankenstein that he's not accepted by the world, and he questions why his creator hates him. The monster also tells Frankenstein of his struggles in the woods, of being hungry, cold, and hated. He explains that while he was scavenging in the woods for food, he stumbles upon a girl drowning in the river and saves her. But the man accompanying the girl shoots the monster, and he gets mad and runs away. He then stumbles upon another child, William, who he strangles to death because he mentioned Frankenstein. Realizing what he's done, he takes a picture out of the boy's pocket and puts it into a girl sleeping in the barn, Justine. After explaining everything to Frankenstein, the monster then requests a wife so that he can have somebody to relate to. On the other hand, Frankenstein just wants to get away with his life, so he reluctantly agrees. While making the other monster back at his home, he thinks about what he's doing, and then he realizes that there's the possibility of creating a demon race. So out of his fear and not thinking about what the monster will do, he dumps the remains into a river. Eventually, the monster finds out, and when Frankenstein returns home, he finds his friend is dead. Frankenstein discovers that he was strangled in the same way as William was. He's forced to put this event behind him, for his wedding day is approaching, and in wanting to protect his wife, he goes out by himself, hoping to lure the monster away. But instead, he returns to find his wife is brutally murdered. In his futile attempts to find his monster, he ends up dying, and the monster weeps over his creator's dead body and shows regrets in his action. The entire story relates to feminism by being written by a woman. Mary Shelley, the author, shows a lot of emotion in her characters, whereas in other books by men, they're usually not as empathetic. Another thing that supports feminism is the fact that Mary Shelley is writing on a different topic, horror. New historicism relates to the monster by him wanting to fit in. Instead, we see he is judged by his appearance, and not by his true character. He also wants someone to relate to so that he can share his feelings, but instead, his pain or bad luck leads him to hate the world and want revenge on humanity. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein shows quite a bit of her background. Her parents were philosophers, and her mother was actually a feminist. Another thing that influenced her dark horror theme was losing most of her children. Only one survived, and she even ended up losing her husband to the ocean. Even for having such a troubling past, it was able to influence her, and without it, we wouldn't have the wonderful work of art that we have today. To wrap it all up, Frankenstein should stay on the 101 college reading list, because it still relates to today's modern literary criticisms and truly stands apart by being a successful story and still popular in today's culture.